to Chris Cillizza, and NewsNation political contributor he is. Well-dressed tonight, too. Brigadier General John Teichert, retired Air Force combat pilot, more than 2,000 flying hours. Gents, good to see both of you. Cillizza, start with you.
Sure.
Stopping the drug trade, universally popular. Video of the U.S. military doing cool things and nobody getting hurt, also very popular. Taking out a communist thug, popular. Getting rare earth minerals and oil, popular. How does Trump lose this?
I actually don't think he does. I mean, look, Rand Paul, Kellie quoted Rand Paul rightly so. Rand Paul is someone who is very much on the libertarian end of the Republican Party. I mean, he does not want U.S. forces in anywhere, and he doesn't want authorization of war. I get that. That said, presidents going back at least to George W. Bush, 2001, after September 11th, have basically acted without the congressional authorization of war.
Right.
So this is a bipartisan thing. I think the issue for Trump is, Leland, you just laid out a lot of good things that come of this. The problem is, I don't know how many people are following it all that closely. I had to say it. You know, it's the economy, it's the healthcare costs,
Well, thank you very much
premiums.
for completely blowing up our lead story, Cillizza. You're welcome back anytime. John Teichert, to you, General. I thought Kellie's question was really smart to Caroline Leavitt, and I'm not just saying that because we led with her. Does it risk the potential for a prolonged war and U.S. troops being involved in that prolonged war? Forgive me if I'm wrong or underestimating the probity of the Venezuelan military, but is that really even a fair fight? Do they even have the capability of a prolonged war to protect Nicolás Maduro from the USS Gerald Ford?
Leland, they don't have the military capability, but what I wish the president would have done is start seizing oil tankers 3 months ago when he started plinking drug boats in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific, because I don't think Maduro cares much about a few guys dying transiting drugs through the Caribbean, but I think he cares a lot about 70 to 90% of income to the federal government in Venezuela that would be shut off if the United States continues to seize these types of tankers. And I think that's something that he really cares about. And I wish we would have ratcheted up that type of pressure 3 months ago instead of waiting till now.
Kellie, I'm going to get you to respond to Chris Cillizza in this sense. What about Venezuela does the White House think is worth all of this time, effort, and political capital?
Well, there's the big question now, and you heard them trying to ask the president that in the Oval Office. Is this about the drug boats and the drugs coming in, or is this about oil? Because now the U.S., after seizing that, at least just that one oil tanker, that's about $60 to over $100 million in oil that the U.S. is now going to seize, and there could be more to come. But there is that question here at the White House, and they feel as though this is a cause they want to continue fighting. They want to make sure that drugs don't come into the United States. They are calling this an invasion. They are saying that that fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction and that they are doing the right thing by stopping these drugs before getting into the U.S.
And Leland, I was just very quickly, don't underestimate.
You want to redeem yourself, Cillizza?
I'm going to try. I mean, I feel like I started off well with the compliment on the wardrobe. The behind the scenes here is really important, right? The leading Venezuela hawk in terms of getting rid of Maduro is Marco Rubio, right? I mean, like he has been very tough on Venezuela for a long time. He is now the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor. So yeah, he clearly has Donald Trump's ear. I mean, we know that, right? He's probably the most influential cabinet secretary out there, and this is a cause for him. So I get it. I mean, I think he has convinced Trump, for all the reasons you laid out, that this makes a ton of sense. So I don't even know if it's necessarily about the politics as much as it's about they believe this is something that is accomplishable. Not sure if that's a word, but that they can do it and that it does have these wins. I think Trump is, as you rightly point out, Trump has become a real believer that we need these rare earth minerals. He understands the oil situation around the world, particularly as it relates to Venezuela.
The White House views this as a low risk, high reward, which is the kind of bets you want to take, especially when you're dealing with affordability, economy, whatever you want to call it, that's not working out so well, at least right now. General, I want to play for you some sound we got last night with Elliot Ackerman, former Marine Raider, former CIA Special Activities officer, about really the feasibility of cutting off the drug trade. Take a listen.
We're talking about a drug eradication program. I fought in Afghanistan. We led a 20-year poppy eradication program in Afghanistan. And guess what? It was a complete and total disaster and did not work.
Is there any reason, General, to think that Venezuela would be any different?
Leland, I think the key would be creating the type of government in Venezuela that is favorable to supporting the United States' interest and eradicating the drug trade and stopping the mass migration that has been such a problem in the Western Hemisphere. And so I think it really comes down to moving Maduro on and standing up the right type of government that can support our objectives. But I wish the president was a little bit more clear in describing to the American public all of the benefits that we've talked about over the course of the last few minutes about how beneficial it would be to the United States in a lot of those different ways. But we haven't seen any of that, and 76% of Americans are begging to understand what are we doing there in Venezuela.
Well, yeah, 70% of Americans oppose a war with Venezuela. And the person who is perhaps best making the case for regime change in Venezuela is the opposition leader who was just scurried out of Venezuela and in Norway to accept the Nobel Peace Prize. Here she is.
Venezuela has been already invaded. We have the Russian agents. We have the Iranian agents. We have terrorist groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, operating freely in accordance with the regime.
Kellie, two parts. One, are your sources at the White House laying out how they are going to sell this to the American people beyond just drugs? Number two, do they see any risks ahead, and how are they planning for them?
To me, it seems as though they are really going full force. We noticed that. We realized that with the military might they are placing in the Caribbean. And I had sources telling me that they were really upping the staff between Thanksgiving and Christmas with Southcom in the Caribbean, just to keep an eye on what could come next. If the president does give the word, he has said those land strikes could be coming soon. He just said that tonight. But I think the White House is still trying to show that this is the fight against drugs, against fentanyl, cocaine coming into the country. They are keeping the focus on that. You hear that from the White House press secretary at the podium today, the president in the Oval Office, that this is saving lives, is what they say.
Right, and if you focus it on drugs and call them narco-terrorists, then you can use military force under the authorization for military force for terrorism. General, back to you. At some point, Nicolás Maduro has a say in this, right? He can either never leave, or he can try to get his military to fight back. Do we have any idea whether the Venezuelan military is really behind Nicolás Maduro, or whether it's one of those situations almost like Manuel Noriega in Panama, where you can take out the strong man, you can bring in a functional civil government without the U.S. having to really fight a war?
Leland, all indications are that the core internal security apparatus around Maduro continues to be loyal. And in addition to that, they believe that the United States is bluffing about kinetic strikes in Venezuela.
Yeah.
So that leads to the situation where he's not going anywhere. He's not compelled to do anything different than what he's doing now, which may mean that we need to call the bluff. And I think the president is walking down that pathway now.
Yeah, and the flip side of it is that you can only say for so long kinetic strikes are coming soon until you have to deliver on that promise. Kellie, Cillizza, General, good to see all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.